It's not easy to find a good story. A story that's inspiring, a story that brings people together, that gives hope for the future. But in 1994, a small group of like-minded people decided that something needed to be done in the name of nature. It was a time of rapid growth and development in our province, and with 70% of Nova Scotia held in private ownership, this left many of the most ecologically significant lands and the wildlife they support at risk. In response, they formed the Nova Scotia Nature Trust, a conservation charity dedicated to protecting and conserving Nova Scotia's natural legacy. The Nature Trust would fill a critical conservation niche, complementing the advocacy work of long-established environmental groups like the Ecology Action Centre and CPAWS, and the conservation efforts of government agencies focused on government-owned lands. The Nature Trust quickly set about creating the legislation, structures, and programs to make private land conservation possible. They protected their first conservation lands, the Brothers, islands in the Bay of Fundy, donated by the late Jack Herman in 1995. A conservation agreement with longtime nature champion Martin Rudy Hasse guaranteed protection of 200 acres of the Washabuck estuary in the Brador Lakes. The Nova Scotia Nature Trust was off to a great start. Within the first year, the first staff member was hired, and the trust attracted its first 100 members. But this was just the beginning. Over the following decade, the Nature Trust became a pioneering force in private land conservation. With many important wild areas in Canada owned by American families, the Nature Trust led groundbreaking work to make cross-border land conservation possible. Their efforts opened the doors to tremendous new conservation opportunities across the country. In 2007, the Nature Trust pioneered the first conservation easement protecting municipally owned land in Canada. Thanks to the visionary leadership of former Wolfville Mayor, the late Bob Stead, the agreement protects the 600-acre Wolfville Watershed Nature Preserve and forged a new conservation path for land trusts and municipalities across the country. Never shy of innovation, the Nature Trust also created the first conservation easement protecting university-owned lands in Canada. They partnered with Acadia University to protect the spectacular Bon Portage Island and later Hemian's Head and Partridge Island. All are models of collaboration that protect biodiversity in perpetuity while fostering academic research, education, and hands-on habitat stewardship. The Nature Trust then led the creation of the country's most progressive conservation property tax incentive program and a provincial fund for private land conservation. These initiatives have inspired and enabled many more landowners to take conservation action. Not only was the Nature Trust advancing nature conservation in our corner of the world, they were forging a path forward for all Canadian land trusts. In 2006, the Nature Trust launched their first major land campaign, seeking to protect the shorelines and rare habitats of the iconic St. Mary's River. With generous land donations from prominent figures like the late Sandy and Shirley Cameron, David Paul and Marcia Sobey, and the support of conservation partners, generous donors and volunteers, there are now 21 kilometers of shoreline and over 1,300 acres of land protected forever on the St. Mary's. 2006 marked the first success in the Nature Trust's journey to protect habitat for our most vulnerable and endangered plants and animals, with the protection of the Gilfil and Lake conservation lands. It also marked a new chapter in conservation collaboration. Innovative partnerships with some of the province's leading scientists, researchers, and other conservation organizations and agencies built unprecedented momentum, synergy, and conservation results. By 2010, they had secured over 5,000 acres of land, and their next conservation focus proved to be one of their most inspiring and powerful. As Canada's ocean playground, the coast has long been treasured by Nova Scotians. Coastal habitats also have great ecological significance, yet face continued development pressures. From the Brothers to Farley Mowat's donation of Farley's Ark in Cape Breton, to partnership with the St. Margaret's Bay Stewardship Association to protect Troop Island, and then Rogue's Roost campaign, coastal conservation has been central to the Nature Trust's efforts. The Nova Scotia Bird Society took notice, entrusting their 7 coastal preserves to the care of the Nature Trust. But then, in 2014, a coastal campaign more ambitious and more awesome than anyone dreamed possible was launched. A campaign to protect an entire wild archipelago off Nova Scotia's eastern shore. 100 wild islands encompassing over 7,000 acres of pristine beaches and sheltered lagoons, wild exposed rocky cliffs, rugged barrens, and coastal rainforests. Spurred by the transformational gift of $3.5 million from Paul Gauthier and spearheaded by a team of amazing volunteers, the Nature Trust raised over $7 million to fulfill the 100 Wild Islands vision. They inspired the province to join the effort, designating all the Crown-owned lands as wilderness. They inspired many island owners to join the legacy, in all protecting over 85% of the 100 wild islands to date. By 2015, the Nature Trust had reached a milestone of 10,000 acres of protected land. For someone involved with the Nature Trust since its inception, this was truly amazing. And then they added a new conservation focus, urban wildlands. In 2018, they added a 300-acre river wilderness near Sambro, treasured for hiking, fishing, and swimming. They saved land at Frederick Lake by the popular Bluff Wilderness Trail from urban development. Their campaign aims to protect sanctuaries of green within the urban core, places for nature and for people to explore and connect with. In recent years, the Nature Trust has begun focusing on sustainability of the organization and its stewardship of a growing network of protected areas. They acquired their own home, Nature's House, in Dartmouth, cutting operational costs, ensuring their future, and providing an opportunity to bring their mission of biodiversity conservation into this city. An infusion of energy into growing its volunteer base doubled the number of volunteer property guardians last year. These faithful guardians are greatly expanding the capacity of the Nature Trust to care for its many and increasingly popular conservation lands. And this year, the Nature Trust's 25th anniversary year has truly been one of the most inspiring. In all, the Nature Trust has now protected over 14,500 acres of wild Nova Scotia, 114 conservation lands all across the province, protected forever, for nature and for people too. The Nature Trust has left an indelible mark in its first 25 years. With their unstoppable ambition and passion, impressive track record, and a mission more relevant and urgent than ever, and with your generous support, imagine what the next 25 years might hold.